Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. This episode is going to be a little bit different than a lot of the other ones. I won't be interviewing anyone today. I'm going to do more of a presentation. Um, Essentially, if I was given the opportunity to do like a TED Talk or something, and I wanted to try to convince people that this problem is a big problem, this is the presentation I would give, I think. It's not perfect, of course. I don't even know if I want it to be this way. Um, this is just a first draft, or well, kind of a first draft. But so often, um, I want things to be perfect, right? When you're only given one opportunity, you really want to make the most of it. But that anxiety that comes from it can kind of cause a paralysis, right? I don't end up doing anything at all because I'm scared of not making a perfect presentation. And so, even though this one's not perfect and I don't even know if I like it, I'm still going to give it, and hopefully, it will be convincing enough for others to take this problem as seriously as I do. Unfortunately, the goal of this presentation is to cause an existential crisis. Um, Yeah, I know we've had a lot of those over the past 50 years. Basically, the Earth has been on the brink every decade. From the Cold War to the climate crisis to the ozone layer. Um, it's been a bad half century for the world and for the people on it. But I think that when there's a crisis and when people really feel that crisis, people can come together and do really amazing things that benefit all of us. When people felt the crisis of nuclear war, came together and created the Non-Proliferation Treaty, and we also did the Clean Air Act and Clean Water Act and the Montreal Protocol to stop the hole in the ozone layer from getting bigger. So these this crisis is it's bad, and having those feelings of anxiety around those crises isn't great, but it does cause us to actually act and actually get things done and make life better for all of us. Um, so, yeah, while it's not the best thing to want to cause a crisis, I do think that if we feel the pressure of this problem, we'll actually do something about it. Um, we must do something about AI. Now, I'm not proposing any kind of big legislation with this problem, with this in this presentation. I just want to simply convince everybody that this is a problem that we need to take seriously, and it is a problem that we need to start working on now, and that there's a problem in the first place. Hopefully, I can convince you of that. Um, Basically, right now, it's the equivalent of people seeing the steam engine for the first time. People saw a steam engine and they thought big things, right? They thought trains, and with trains that would transform society. With trains, you can communicate much faster, right? You can send mail to someone across the country and get a reply within weeks rather than months. And same with agriculture. You could actually grow food pretty far away from cities and sell it in the cities before it rots. That is transformative. And that's what we're seeing today. That's what people are thinking about today. But the Industrial Revolution didn't stop with just the steam engine, right? It changed so many aspects of our society. Yet 100 years later, um, after the science behind electromagnetism continued to progress, eventually the steam engine, leads into the steam turbine, which allows us to generate electricity in mass, which changes society completely again. You know, 200 years ago, hardly anyone had an education, and we were living basically in starvation, right? But now, nearly everyone is educated. And we actually have a food surplus, right? We make more calories than humanity needs every year. Of course, getting that food to the people is still a problem that we have nowadays, but there is a lot of food waste, essentially. But we make more food than we need. AI could be, likely, will be, the beginning of another revolution where we could see even greater changes in society as we did in the Industrial Revolution. And a lot of you might, be a little skeptical on it and think to yourselves, how can I be so sure? And so I want you to consider two facts. Whenever someone has made a claim about computers not being able to do something, they were eventually proven wrong. I know that's not a very scientific position to be in, right? It's not falsifiable, because I can always just say, wait another 5 years and maybe it will come true. But that trend has been pretty secure for decades now. In the 1970s, a lot of people said that computers couldn't play chess, or would never be able to do so professionally. A lot of probably futurists back then were able to see that that would come true eventually, right? Moore's law was already fully in effect, and so you can see that probably in the mid-90s, which is when Deep Blue came on the scene, we would have chess playing computers, and they were right. And so, yeah, they were eventually proven wrong that computers could play chess. And then people said the same thing about Go, right? Go was the next big challenge. However, Go is a lot harder than chess. Go, there's more board states in Go than there are atoms in the universe. And so you can't simply calculate solutions to boards like you can with chess. With chess, you can go through the tree, search the tree, and find the right move. But Go, you can't do that. And a lot of professional Go players, in fact, say that they don't really have strategies per se. They have intuition, and you can't really teach a computer intuition, or rather, you can't program a computer intuition. But as we find with neural networks, they can teach themselves some kind of human intuition. And in 2016, AlphaGo was able to beat the world Go master, Lee Sedol. And the Turing test, right? The Turing test has been the holy grail of tests for nearly 100 years. And I bet a lot of experts 20 years ago would say that we wouldn't be able to have the Turing test done this century. Well, maybe by the end of the century, closer to 2100, but I doubt many experts would have said that we would beat the Turing test in 20 years' time. And we have. So it just, whenever I hear someone say that AI can't do that, or AI won't be able to take my job, I just always think to myself, not yet. Can't yet. The next fact that I want to talk about is that not only are computers consistently improving and getting better and able to do more and more stuff, but they're also accelerating. It's been demonstrated through Moore's law that that's kind of a fact, and it hasn't slowed down. We haven't seen a plateau at all. So not only are these computers completing the Turing test and beating people at Go, but they're doing so decades earlier than people would have thought. And you can see that in the way AI progresses. 8 years ago, the top of the line AI image generators, would output 32 by 32 pixel images. And by 2021, we had DALL-E 2, which could output nearly 1 million pixel pictures. And it also looked a lot better. These scaling laws for AI are holding up, and they don't seem to be slowing down. Now, if you look at some of the graphs, they do seem to be plateauing. However, it could be that the software is just merely hitting the limits of the current hardware. Our models contain billions of parameters, even possibly trillions of parameters. We don't exactly know what GPT-4, the size of GPT-4 is, but we know it's very large. And these things are costing tens of billions, hundreds of billions of dollars to train. And so that's just kind of maybe too expensive, and they're not seeing the benefit of doing that yet. So they're kind of slowing down, kind of plateauing. But the progress of hardware is a lot slower than the progress of AI. And so maybe in 5 or 10 years, when we see NVIDIA continue to accelerate their own chips, and we see chips that are 1,000 times more powerful than they are now, which is possible. NVIDIA has already shown that they can do that for the past decade. They might be able to do it for this next decade. And so these 1 trillion parameter models could soon become 100 trillion parameter models. And that could be a big change. And we could see that within a decade. That little, not yet that I think to myself actually has a little asterisk next to it, which is not yet, just wait 5 years. Wait 5 years for the new hardware to come out and then see if that model could do your job. So hopefully I've convinced you that there's a problem coming, and that problem is really big change. It's not a well-defined problem because we're talking about the future here and we don't know what's going to happen, but change will happen, and in fact that's probably a good thing. The future has always been undefined, with or without AI, and so that gives us something to work with. Usually, when you come across uncertainty, when you want to set goals for yourself, you simply create a very precise, clear, exact vision of what you want your goal to be. And then you can make steps to achieve that goal. And that's what we've got to do here. We need to have a very precise, clear, exact vision of what we want our society to look like in the future. Because if we don't make that choice for ourselves, someone else will. AI is going to creep into every aspect of our lives, and we must decide on how we want our society to react to that. We must reassess every aspect of society. What's the purpose of public education? Why do we have it? What purpose does it serve our society? Is it to provide children with knowledge that they can use for higher level work, to be more productive workers in our economy? Because if that's the purpose of education, then it's going to be useless. There's no reason to keep going. Why spend all that money on education when it doesn't actually do anything for us? So do we just get rid of it? Or do we change public education to something else? What do we want it to be? What do we want to have our society look like? Personally, I still want a society of moral, upright citizens that carry out their civic duties, and I want everyone to treat each other with respect and also to understand personal responsibility. That's what I believe our society should look like. And that requires public education. We don't need science and math, and I think we do need a little bit of reading and writing and math, maybe like to an elementary level, right, 5th grade. But beyond that, I think we should focus only on those goals. And that's what I think. What does everyone else think? We need to talk about these things. We need to discuss what we want our society to look like. And what about work? Right? Work is going to change entirely. Let's not even talk about universal basic income, because Society without jobs means no one has income for basic necessities. So it would necessitate a universal basic income. But that's like, an entirely different talk. Like we could talk just about the very idea that work tends to give people purpose, right? A society without work, or just even fewer jobs, there's going to be a lot of people that do nothing. It's a society of aimless people. Like that, I think a problem. I think that's a big problem. I don't know what a society of aimless people looks like. I feel like there would it cause a lot of trouble? Would there be mass depression? Right? What do people do with their lives? How do people go about living if they don't feel like they have purpose? Do we take that and then put it back into education? Do we need to also include in our education, the idea of giving people personal responsibility and having them learn how to create purpose in their own life? We often ask our first graders, what they want to be when they grow up. And maybe our education system can actually do that. It can personalize each individual child, so that it allows them to grow up and become that dream. Maybe AI will allow us to do that. And so if we can guide them toward a future where they're not aimless, I think that would be really beneficial to our society. Everything is going to change. And it's going to change as dramatically as it did in the Industrial Revolution. 200 years ago, we didn't have anyone with an education, and it's possible that we won't have anyone in the future with an education. Right? We might go back to that. I don't know. It's hard to say. We need to reassess every aspect of our society. What if we decided that we don't even want the AI to actually take over all our jobs? We didn't want it to do all this work. Then that would require an entirely different set of solutions to these problems, right? Ones that require really, really big legislation that needs to happen basically right now. Because once AI gets into our system, once AI gets into our economy, and we become dependent on it for our economy, it would be nearly impossible to get it out. That's essentially what would happen with our fossil fuels. Our fossil fuels become so embedded in our economy that it becomes almost impossible to get rid of them. So we need to make these decisions now. In fact, we need to make all these decisions now, because the same will be true with everything else in every aspect of our lives. Once AI seeps its way into that part of our lives, it'll be very difficult to get it back out. So we really need to think about how we want our society to be before AI gets into those parts. As of right now, a lot of experts will say that we're just not ready for AI. Our society is not built for it. And frankly, they're right. But it doesn't have to stay like that. Humans have come together in crisis and made big decisions that benefited all of us. And we can do the same thing right now. We can come together and make these big decisions about AI. So we can guarantee that AI will benefit all of us, not just some of us. Thank you.